students. I welcome you to the 7th lecture for GNS. I am Dr. Mrs. Durojaiye. I will be taking you on Introductory Aquaculture and Small-Scale Fish Production. I will be starting by defining what aquaculture is. What is aquaculture? Aquaculture is the culture of or growing of aquatic organisms within a controlled environment. Here, controlled means that everything that has to do with the management of the aquatic organism is within the control of the handler. Stuff like feeding, health management, water quality control, and the rest. Everything lies within the control of the handler. What are the aquatic organisms that you can culture? You have fish, oysters, prawns, aquatic algae, and seaweed. What is the relevance of aquaculture? Just like you know, aquaculture is a food production industry. However, all products from aquaculture are not limited to foods. But the major essence of aquaculture is the production of protein-rich food. Another relevance of aquaculture is that aquaculture products having international relevance. Aquaculture products usually have their international commodities. Hence, it's an avenue to generate foreign exchange for the government and individuals. Also, aquaculture can provide employment for people, hence reducing poverty within the society. There are certain aquaculture products that are essential or required by the industry, for instance, health industry and pharmaceutical industries. The next thing I want to talk about is fish identification. What is fish identification? Fish identification are procedures or protocols that you follow in identifying or distinguishing between different species or different types of fish. There are different factors that you use in fish identification. One is the body structure. What does the fish look like? Is it streamlined shape? Is it dorsal-ventrally flattened? That is one. Also, you have structures such as the mouth part. What type of mouth does it have? Is it terminal mouth part? Is it subterminal? Is it inferior? Is it superior? You can also use the teeth to identify fish. What type of teeth does it have? Is it fang-like? Is it canine-like? Is it villiform? Also, the position of these teeth on the jaw of the fish. Where is it placed? Is it mandibular? Is it maxillary? These locations can help you identify a particular fish or distinguish it from another fish. Other structures that you can use include scales, and you also have the caudal peduncle, that is the tail fin. What type of tail fin does it have? Is it forked? Is it lunate? Is it rounded? All these are considered, and then you use them in identifying fish. There are other factors that you can use in identifying fish. You have the meristic measurements. The meristic measurement has to do with the length of the fish. Okay, you have things like standard length, total length, forked length, and the rest, in order for you to identify different fish species. Another factor or another protocol that you can adopt or employ in fish identification is molecular characterization. What you do here is that you use the DNA sequence of that fish to know the type of fish you are dealing with, and this is the ultimate form of fish identification. The fish habitat. Where does the fish stay? Fish stay essentially in water. That is the environment of the fish. However, the habitat of the fish is distinguished based on salinity. Some environments have high salinity, while some environments have low salinity. The environments that have low salinity, usually between less than 1 part per thousand is referred to as the freshwater habitat. The marine habitat has salinity higher than 34 parts per thousand, while the brackish water habitat is an interface between the freshwater habitat and the marine habitat, and the salinity is usually between 2 to 34 parts per thousand. Examples of freshwater fish species and marine water fish species. Examples include Eurychromis niloticus, essentially in freshwater. Pinelus monodon is a shrimp. You have Chana obscura, Chrysitis nigoddigitatus. There are a lot of examples abound, and I cannot keep mentioning them, but these are already provided in the study material given to you. The next I'll be talking about is aquaculture systems in Nigeria's fisheries sector. Here, there are different criteria to identify or to group aquaculture systems. One of these is criteria based on capture style. What is the capture style? Is the fish actively hunted? If the fish is actively hunted, where if a fisherman goes after the fish in the wild, that is capture fisheries. If the fish is cultured within a controlled environment, you say you have cultured fisheries. Based on location, what aquaculture systems do we have? We have Geofor aquaculture system and Aquafor aquaculture system. What do I mean by this? Any aquaculture facility that is based on land is referred to as Geofor aquaculture system, while aquaculture facilities based on or erected on water, you refer to it as Aquafor aquaculture system. Examples of facilities that you can adopt in Geofor aquaculture systems include tanks, which could be made of plastics and concrete. There are certain times you even erect a wooden frame and then surround it or cover it with tarpaulin to fill it with water. Other structures that you have on Aquafor or in Aquafor aquaculture system, you have cages and pens. These different facilities have their advantages and disadvantages, and they've been listed in the material given to you. Now, another classification is based on intensity of culture. That is, how intensive is the culture. Now, under here, you have extensive aquaculture system, intensive aquaculture system, and semi-intensive aquaculture system. In extensive aquaculture system, the input is generally low. That is, what you are putting into the production is usually low. You can even call it a hobby or recreational venture because you hardly feed the fish. Even if you feed the fish, it is trash or waste food materials that you just dump. There's no form of health management practices. The water quality control is non-existent. Hence, the output is also low. Unlike intensive aquaculture system where everything that the fish needs is provided for it, from food to good water quality to health management practices that are top-notch, that will ensure that the diseases are prevented and the fish comes out fine. Usually the input for intensive aquaculture is usually very high. Hence, the output in terms of profit is also very high. Now, there is an interface between these two systems. It is the semi-intensive system. Here, only supplementary feed is supplied. The feed supplied to the fish is not does not contain the full requirements of the fish. Also, health management is low or non-existent. So the output from this production system is also quite low, but it is still better compared to what is obtainable in extensive aquaculture system. Another is aquaculture system based on stocking style. Here you have monoculture and polyculture. Monoculture involves the stocking of only one species of fish within a culture facility or holding facility, while polyculture involves the culture or holding of more than 2 species within the same holding facility. What are the factors you consider before establishing an aquaculture venture? The very first thing you consider is the feasibility. How feasible is this venture? The area where you want to site, is it a place where fish is acceptable? There are some religions or cultural beliefs that oppose consumption of fish. Now, imagine going to such a place and say that is where you want to start your aquaculture venture. That might not be feasible, and it might lead to the failure of such a venture. Also, funds. Do you have funds to carry out all production and processes? It is not enough for you to have funds that is just enough for you to establish the venture. What of production? Do you have enough money for production? Hence, you have to check the feasibility of establishing such a venture. Another thing is suitable sites. Suitable sites in terms of what land are you using? Is it a land that is good for aquaculture in terms of the soil strength, the soil texture, porosity? Can it hold water? What is the topography like? Is it slopey? Is it hilly? These are things you need to consider. Can the culture facility you want to erect on that land, can the land withstand its pressure? Can it sustain it? You need to consider this. Another thing you need to consider is water. Is water available within that location, irrespective of the culture facility you want to employ? Is water available? Even if water is available, what is the quality of the water? You know, every fish species has its water quality requirements. So there's usually a range. The water available in this location that you want to establish an aquaculture enterprise, is the water suitable to grow fish? Also, how easy is it for you to get fingerlings or seeds that you are going to stock in your farm? Is it that the location where you get these seeds is very far? Remember, transportation can induce stress on fish. So if you are bringing fish from a very far distance, you might be running into crisis. So you might want to consider the nearness of your establishment to places where you can get seeds to stock your ponds. Another is feed. Do you have adequate feed for the entire production period? Also, is the feed nutritionally balanced? Remember, fish require different nutrients, and these nutrients must be supplied. So the feed the feed that you think you might have access to, will it be supplying the nutrient requirements of the fish of interest? Also, what is the agroclimatic conditions and meteorological conditions of the place? The place you are choosing or you want to choose, is it prone to natural disasters like floods? So you need to consider this. And also the security of the region. How secure is the region? Okay, is it free from poaching, stealing, sabotage, and the likes like that? Also, how near is it from security agencies? Even if there's a crisis on your farm, is it possible that there are security agencies that can come on farm to forestall whatever havoc these saboteurs might want to wreak on your farm? So you need to consider all this before you say you want to establish an aquaculture venture. Now, what are the factors you consider when you want to select fish species for culture? First is fast growth. The fish species of interest should have fast growth. The shorter the production cycle, the better for the farmer, the more money the farmer will make. So the fish must have fast growth. Also, the fish must have ability to accept artificial feed. Okay, a fish that cannot accept artificial feed might not be suitable for culture. Another is resistance to disease. How resistant is that fish to disease? Is it one that is not hardy, that is susceptible to diseases, you need to consider this. Also, the propensity to breed in captivity. You might not want to keep getting your seeds from the wild. Is it possible that this fish species is capable of breeding in captivity so that you will get seeds for continuity on your farm? Also, what is the market value of that species? How relevant is it in the market? Do people want that fish species? You need to consider this. Also, the local availability of fish seed. How easy is it for you to get the seeds, that is the fingerlings or juveniles that you stock on your farm? How easy is it? Hope you are not, it's not going to be an Herculean tax for you to get the seeds. You need to, and again, adaptability to the environment. How adaptable that is, how can it survive in whatever environment you are bringing it to? Okay, if there are certain fish species that you cannot even take from the wild and then say you want to culture them, because they just can't withstand controlled environments. They prefer to be the wild, to range freely as against being held in captivity. So you need to consider this before you select fish species for culture. The next thing I want to talk about is pond construction. What is a pond? A pond is a shallow body of water. Usually the depth is not much, usually between 0.5 and 2.5 for aquaculture purposes. There are different types of pond based on life stage you want to culture. It could be a lava pond, it could be a broodstock pond, it could be grow out pond. Also on the style of construction, you can have embankment pond or excavated pond, where you strip the topsoil and then you excavate soil to create a depression. Also, before you say you want to select a site for pond construction, you need to carry out what is called preliminary survey or reconnaissance survey. It's just the initial survey you carry out to know if that land is suitable for culture. Then, after the reconnaissance survey, you carried out the detailed survey. Be it the preliminary survey or detailed survey, you will want to consider the water quality of the region or of the pond. Or now, the water quality is the status of water. It could be the chemical status, the physical status, the biological status, or the radiological status of the water. Also, the site will dictate the kind of design you might want to consider for pond construction. And then the depth, also under design, the pond depth is also essential. The depth that is required for nursery pond is different from what is obtained or required for grow out pond. What are the steps in pond construction? The first is, after site selection, is clearing. You clear the region. If it has trees, you might want to remove roots by stumping. After clearing, you will mark the land. After marking, you peg. You can use wooden pegs and you can use metal pegs. After pegging, you use a rope to mark out properly. After marking out, you strip the top soil and then you excavate the soil to create a depression. Usually, if you are using a natural spring, water will seep out naturally from the ground. But if the place is dry, you might need to fill in water. However, doing that will be wasteful. Then you do the dike construction. The dike is the wall of the pond. You erect the dike, and then you also establish the dike and maintain it by building grasses on the dike. After you might have done this, what are the management practices you might want to engage in? First is liming. Liming is the addition of a liming agent. Liming usually helps in moderating the pH of the water. There are different liming agents that you can use. What dictates the quantity of lime you apply? The quantity of lime you apply is dictated by water volume and not the size of the pond. Remember, what you are liming is the pond water and not the pond itself, just the pond water. So when you are doing your calculations to know the quantity of lime to apply, you focus on the volume of water. Also, fertilizer application. You can go ahead after to apply fertilizer after you might have limed. That is if you observe that there is no the fertility of the pond fertility or the water fertility is low, and it is not usually necessary that you apply fertilizer. Fertilizer that you want to apply could be organic and it could be inorganic, and the quantity you want to apply to is also dependent on the water volume and not the size of the pond. After doing this, you stock. You ensure the appropriate stocking density so that there will be overcrowding will be avoided. Thereafter, you sort, because remember I talked about fish being able to adapt to the environment. So once you stock the fish into these environments, they have different adaptability, hence they have different growth rates. There are some that will grow faster than the other. You might want to stock to avoid competition and cannibalism or aggression from one to the other. Another thing you do is feeding. You supply feed to the fish. Usually the feed should be nutritionally balanced for the fish under culture. How often do you want to feed the fish? Is it twice daily? Is it once daily, 3 times daily? Whatever the feeding frequency will be dependent on the type of fish you are growing. Okay. And the type of feed too you want to give is dependent. Is it going to be floating feed? Is it going to be sinking feed? Is it going to be pellets? Is it going to be crumbles or granules? It all depends on the life stage and the type of species you are raising. Then cropping. Cropping is harvesting. You can do what you call test cropping, that random cropping of the fish. What this does is that you just want to know the weight of the fish. You want to know the welfare. Are they good? Are they in good condition? It's just a way of observing your fish. Another form of cropping is partial cropping. Here, you have the intention to dispose the fish off. You are not observing the fish here. You just want to dispose the fish. Partial, you are not cropping or harvesting all the fish within the holding facility. It's just partial, some of it. But if you want to do complete, if it is all the fish within the holding facility that you want to crop, then you say you are doing complete cropping. One thing is very essential. Whatever you are doing, even from the idea stage, it is important that you keep record. You have to record every step that you are taking, the cost, all activities, you have to record them. Hence, record keeping is very essential in aquaculture management. I want to talk on fish nutrition now. What is nutrition? Nutrition is the science of feeding. Feeding, that is ingesting and digesting nutrients, and also assimilating the nutrients into the body of the fish. Okay. In fish feed, fish feed supply 2 essential nutrients: macronutrients and micronutrients. Macronutrients are nutrients required in large quantities. Example include carbohydrates, lipids, and proteins. However, there is a word of caution on lipids. You know that lipid supplies almost ×3 of the energy supplied by carbohydrates. However, you cannot use lipid as an energy source. The reason is that lipid metabolism is very slow. So the energy that is in lipids might not be obtainable by the fish on time. Also, you might be raising fatty fish if you use much lipids. The second classification of nutrients is micronutrients. They are usually they are vitamins and minerals. They are required in small quantities, and they are very important. If you don't add them, there might be problem with your fish, because these micronutrients are coenzymes or catalysts that are responsible for the activation of different physiological processes within the fish. In fish nutrition, you can say you are giving the fish a complete diet. That is, if the feed you are giving to the fish has the complete nutrient composition required by the fish. And there are certain times you do supplementary, you give supplementary diets. Okay, for instance, when you are doing semi-intensive aquaculture, you might want to give supplementary diets. That is, it does not contain the full nutrient requirements of the fish. It is only a supplement. It is just supplementing for something, for feed. Also on nutrition, the type of feed you give to the fish is also dependent on the feeding habits of the fish. What is the feeding habit of the fish? There are different classifications. You have detritivores, fish that feed on dead organic matters. There are some that have carnivorous feeding habits that is they feed on flesh, and some are omnivorous in nature, that is they feed on both plant materials and animal materials. And some have herbivorous feeding habits. They feed essentially on plants matter. Some are grazers, that is they nibble on materials and then they feed on them. Irrespective of the feeding habits of the fish, you need to compound a nutritionally balanced diet for the fish if you want it to grow. What are the breeding techniques that are obtainable in aquaculture? There are different breeding techniques that are obtainable. But before I go into that, why do you want to breed? Fish breeding entails reproduction, production of offsprings, younger ones. You can get this done in the wild where it is obtained naturally, and you can control it also in the hatchery. Here, in the hatchery, what you do is you collect the gonads from male and female fish, and you fertilize it. You might be wondering, how is that achievable, or how can we achieve it? How do we know if the fish is mature? There are things you look out for before you choose the broodstock that you want to use for breeding purpose. Even after selecting the broodstock, you might want to hasten gonadal maturation. What you do is that you inject with hormones like fish pituitary, HCG, human chorionic gonadotropin, and some other hormones. Now, that is essentially the artificial breeding techniques. Now, to pollution in aquatic environments. What is pollution? Pollution is just the infiltration of substances that do not support the water quality of a particular water body. Now, if there is if certain parameters exceed their limits, you say that water is polluted. Usually, water quality parameters have different ranges for different water bodies, okay, and for different purposes. So, what is the purpose of the water you are talking about? But for you to say a water is polluted for aquaculture, it means that it contains substances, usually referred to as pollutants, that has caused it to deviate from its normal water quality parameter ranges. Some of these pollutants include heavy metals, we have plastics, and depending on the type of pollutant you are talking about. There are some you classify them as point source pollutants, and there are some you classify them as non-point pollutants. If you are talking about point source pollutants, that is, you know the source of these pollutants. But if it is non-point pollutants, you don't even know where, you cannot actually determine the source of the pollution. There are some that are biodegradable, some are non-biodegradable. If they are biodegradable, it means that they can be degraded or broken down into smaller molecules by biological components like bacteria, fungi, and the likes. But if they are non-biodegradable, it means that they are going to stay very long within the environment. There are some that are dictated by their physicochemical states. They could be in gases, they could be in liquid, they could be in solids. Irrespective of what the pollutant looks like, they are causing a form of distress to the water body and might not make the water suitable for aquaculture. So these are things you might need to consider when you want to select a site for aquaculture enterprise. Disease management in aquaculture. How do you manage diseases in aquaculture? There are different ways in which you manage diseases. But before I talk about disease management, what is disease itself? Disease is deviation from the normal state of health of the fish. Usually, it comes into play when the fish is stressed or when the fish is exposed to a stressful condition. For instance, it could be nutritional imbalance. If the fish is not getting enough nutrients, it might suffer from disease. Also, it could be as a form of environmental factors such as pollution. It could be as a result of temperature fluctuation. It could be as a result of presence of certain chemical pollutants within the water. And there are some diseases that are caused by pathogens. You say they are pathogenic diseases. The ones that I've mentioned earlier are non-pathogenic. They are not caused by pathogens. But the ones caused by pathogens like bacteria, virus, and fungi are the ones that are transmissible from one organism to the other. Non-pathogenic are not transmissible. Okay. Hence, if you are able to identify what disease you are dealing with, that will dictate the kind of management you want to employ. If it's a pathogenic disease, you might want to use antimicrobial agents to ward off or to control or to treat these diseases. But if it is non-pathogenic, for instance, nutritional disease, maybe as a result of nutritional deficiency, all you need to do is augment the diet with the deficiency that the fish is lacking. Okay, so the disease type will dictate the kind of management practices that you engage in. But generally, you need to maintain adequate water quality to prevent diseases. Also, the nutrition, you need to focus on the nutrition of the fish. The feed you are supplying to the fish must be balanced and must contain the required nutrients. There are certain times you are even overfeeding the fish certain nutrients. Don't go beyond the range that is required by the fish, else you'll just be wasting resources and you might even be polluting the water, making the environment unconducive for the fish and predisposing the fish to stressful conditions. Finally, I will be talking on post-harvest value addition. What is post-harvest value addition? This involves the preservation techniques that you employ to elongate the shelf life of fish after you might have harvested them. You know, fish is very it's a perishable food, so it decays quickly. There are certain times you are not able to sell off the fish as fresh. What happens when that occurs? Are you going to keep feeding the fish? Or even if it is from the wild, from captured fisheries, and you've caught excess and you've sold what you can sell, what happens to the excess that you have produced? All you need to do is engage in certain preservation methods to elongate the shelf life. The most common method we use here in Nigeria is smoking. All smoking does is to reduce the moisture contents. You know, bacterial proliferation is increased when moisture content in that product is high. So by reducing the moisture content, you will reduce the activity of bacteria and other microbes. Another thing you can do to add value to the fish is you can freeze. It's a preservation. It's not, you are not adding value to it per se, like it's changing form. All you are doing is elongating its shelf life. Remember, value addition is not limited to you altering the form of that fish. The essence is the major essence is for you to elongate the shelf life, to preserve it longer. And there are certain times that value addition is to alter the taste. You want to come about something different compared to, you might even say, oh, this fish, I don't want it to be for consumption. Can I convert it to something that can be utilized for industrial purposes? There are people now who use fish skin for wound healing. So what happens to the fillet? You might want to do certain things just to add value to that product. I have come to the end of today's class. I hope you've learned one or two things from the class. I wish you a very good day. Bye for now.